I'm Dr. We're going to read Chapter 2 of Elixir right now. We left off Chapter 1 in Paris, where the whole kinds of shit hit the fan. Alright, this chapter should be shorter. This is only about 20 pages compared to the other chapters, 30. I'm also concerned that these videos might be too long. They're definitely a lot longer than I thought they'd be. Hell, none of my friends would even watch this because, it's too long and, who would watch a 52-minute video? No, so, So I'm going to try and cut down on time any way I can. Now, I'm not sure how to do that. I haven't exactly looked up other strategies to see what other people are doing. I think I'm going to start by doing less commentary and maybe trying to read faster? I don't know. We'll see if it finds out. Anyway, let's start up with Chapter 2. Back home in Connecticut, I stared at my computer, poring over the image on the screen. My eyes burned from the lack of sleep and 4 hours in front of the monitor. After a long plane ride, an endless wait at the baggage carousel, and a traffic-filled slog up the highway, Raina and I had arrived home in the Niantic, isn't that the Pokemon company? Early in the afternoon Eastern time, but well into the evening Paris time. Raina and I hugged each other goodbye and split off into our separate houses to crash. Except I couldn't. I had a 16-gig compact flashcard filled with trip pictures screaming for my attention. I loaded them onto my hard drive and started sorting. It would take me ages to really do justice to every shot I snapped over the 3-week trip, so I let my instincts winnow them down. I allowed myself the briefest scan of each image, saving the ones that grabbed me to a special file. Again and again I went through the process, giving myself a little more time on each picture with every round, pulling aside the ones my eyes couldn't stop drifting to, the ones that struck me in a place of pure instinct and emotion. I have a friend who's a photographer, and that sounds about right. It took hours, but eventually I narrowed them down to 20 pictures, spanning all portions of our trip. Trafalgar Square at night, a snarling gargoyle leaping off a column at Prague's St. Vitus Cathedral, Rhina with her back to the Trevi fountain, following tradition by tossing a coin with her right hand over her left shoulder. 20 pictures, it seems like they went all over Europe. Trafalgar Square, I know that's in the UK, Prague, that's Czech Republic. Trevi Fountain, I'm assuming that's in Italy. Like, how do you narrow all that down to just 20 pictures? Doesn't seem right. But my eyes kept going back to a picture of the fire at Bia's apartment building. I clicked it so it took up the whole screen. It was a shot of 2 firefighters on the ground. The smoke had grown thick by this point. Both wore oxygen tanks on their backs and cone-shaped masks that obscured their entire faces. Their thick black suits, yellow gloves, and yellow helmets covered them entirely, yet their emotion was crystal clear. They leaned back in perfect sync, holding the thick green hose between them, shooting water up at the flames, the very angle of their bodies and faces signaling grit, determination, and hope. The image was gripping and kinetic, yet as I ran my eyes over it again and again, I wasn't drawn to the firefighters, but to the fire truck far behind them. Mystery time. Ooh. I enlarged the picture, zoomed in on the truck, and there was an indentation along its side panel, the place where the hoses connected and the water valves turned on and off. The image was shadowed by something, but it was still too small and I couldn't see it clearly. I enlarged the picture again, centering that one spot on the side panel. Now I understood. The shadow was from a man. He looked young, in his early 20s maybe, though it was hard to make out his features, since he wasn't looking at the lens. He faced sideways, one hand gripping the ladder embedded in the panel wall. His head was downcast, and every muscle in his body seemed to coil with clenched tension. That's a lot of information from what I assume has to be really blurry. It's the CSI effect in novel form. Could it be a firefighter? He was built like one, but he wasn't in uniform, and he wore a black leather jacket over jeans and a gray t-shirt. And though he had all the facial scruff of someone who'd been on the job all night, he wasn't engaged with the fire at all. He seemed wrapped in his own thoughts. His mane of dark, tousled hair, chiseled cheekbones, and thick eyebrows were stunning, but some inward pain twisted his eyes and mouth away from the beauty and towards something more difficult and profound. I couldn't take my eyes off him. I wondered what was going on in his head. Had the fire started in his apartment? I imagined him on the scene as the engines arrived, screaming at the flames as if sheer will could stop them. Or perhaps he was still inside when the firefighters came, raging against the growing inferno, coughing from smoke as he defiantly pounded out licks of flame with the blankets wet from his sink. I could see him struggling against the firefighters as they pulled him out of his apartment. I could imagine the sound of doorbell brought me back to reality. Ding dong. That's not in there. I wanted to say something. Perry? I called. Then I remembered our housekeeper wasn't here today. I'd given her the day off so I could decompress on my own. Reluctantly, I left my computer and went down to the front of the door. No one was there, but a large bouquet of irises with blooms in all the colors of the rainbow had been left on the stoop. They were beautiful. I carried them inside and placed them on the kitchen table, then opened the card. Welcome home. Sorry I couldn't be there. I love you and I'll see you next week when I get back from Israel. Love, Mom. And my eyes look red as hell. No, sorry. So she's from, yeah, she's in Israel. She's got to be on the Foreign Relations Committee, or maybe there was some presidential convoy. I'm not sure. That was it. Despite her choice of blooms, she didn't mention Dad at all. She hadn't since the day after he was buried, in a casket with no body, under a headstone that would never mark his final resting place. She had told me flat out. She had told me flat out that she couldn't handle speaking about him, so we wouldn't. Period. It was hard at first, but after she won her Senate seat and became a prominent member of the Foreign Relations Committee, yeah, I called it. Oh yeah, I call it Chapter 1. Woo. So Hillary Duff does know something about the Senate. Awesome. Now tell me who the governor is. After she won her Senate seat and became a prominent member of the Foreign Relations Committee, constantly traveling around the world, we had so little time together that I didn't want to ruin it with anything that would upset her. So I hold my tongue and keep our conversation light. It keeps a chasm between us, but since there's no way for me to bridge it without breaking her, I let it go. But she had sent irises, my dad's favorite flower. I touched the charm around my neck and felt happy and empty at the same time. I wanted to call Mom and tell her I understood what she couldn't say. I wanted to pour out my heart about my nightmares and how broken I still felt inside, but I knew she'd find an excuse to get off the phone the minute I started. You seem rich. You can go to a therapist. I couldn't find comfort with Mom, but maybe I could with Dad. It wasn't ideal, but it always seemed to help a little. I plucked one of the irises from the vase and walked upstairs to Dad's office. Most people would think Grant Raymond, as the most renowned heart surgeon in the world, would take pride in keeping things clean, pristine perhaps, even sterile, but those people would be wrong. My dad wasn't sloppy or dirty, but he liked his surroundings to reflect his thinking, multi-branched, creative, and divergent. In the operating room, he needed absolute order. Everywhere else was when he thrived on absolute chaos. Okay, that's good. I don't want the surgeon performing on me to get creative. You saw what happened to those Ben Carson kids. It was not pretty. Another quirk of Dad's was that although he could remember an infinite number of intricate surgical maneuvers and enough random details and trivia to run any Jeopardy champion under the table, he found it patiently impossible to remember basic things like phone numbers, appointments, or what in the world he had actually walked into this room to do. To mitigate this flaw, he wrote everything down, usually on whatever was handiest. This left his office looking like the heavens had opened and rained leaves of paper for 40 days and 40 nights. Popping up from this churning ocean were models of the human heart, reference book, and notebooks full of inspired scrawls. We're actually getting kind of a vivid picture of her, Dad. I'm impressed. Illustrious hospitals and medical journals from all over the world had begged to send experts to sift through everything, just in case Dad left notes that might lead to some major leaps forward in cardio health. Illustrious hospitals and medical journals from all over the world had begged to send experts to sift through everything, just in case Dad had left some notes that might lead to major leaps forward in cardio health. Mom paid no attention to these requests, but someone had to deal with them. That left me. I saw the experts' arguments. I even knew logically they were right. The world deserved to benefit from Dad's knowledge. If something in his office could save or improve a single life, Dad would want that information available. But strangers going through his room seemed like the ultimate degradation. Like an autopsy. I knew it made no sense, but it was how I felt. Maybe in a few years I'd change my mind. Or maybe never. I picked my way to Dad's desk and sat down in his chair, mimicking his favorite pose. I leaned all the way back, surveyed the glorious chaos, and waited for that feeling of his presence to settle in like it always did. But it didn't. Something was wrong. Something in this room was different. I couldn't place it exactly, but I could feel it. Things had been moved or altered somehow. Placed back afterward, maybe, so it wouldn't be so obvious. But there was an ineffable change in the room. I felt the edge of panic hit. This office was the closest thing I had to my dad. Changing anything in here changed him, or what was left of him for me. Was it Puri? Had she tried to clean in here? Impossible. Puri revered Dad. Despite her overwhelming belief in the cleanliness-godliness connection, she would defend to the death his right to make any choice, even one she found personally heartbreaking. The few times Dad had left the door open as Puri saw inside, he held her breath and crossed himself for protection, but she walked right by. But if it wasn't Puri, then who? Who else had access to the house while I was away? Mom? She would never step inside here. Ben had keys. He loved my dad. He might have come inside to see him like I do, but he would never move anything. He wouldn't do that to me. Same with Ray and his family. Could it be someone without keys? Someone who'd broken in while I was gone? Someone who waited for Paris to leave at the end of the day, then slipped inside and snooped through my dad's things, opening drawers, moving things, changing them around. Stop! I said it out loud. I was being ridiculous and jumping to conclusions. I'd done that a lot this year. Extreme thinking, my therapist called it, until she does have a therapist. Not uncommon in people who have been through an unexpected tragedy. When it happened, I was supposed to step back and look at things as rationally as possible. So, rationally then, what specifically was different in here? I didn't know. Maybe nothing. Except I still felt the cold sense that something was wrong. I'm going to cut it out of the video, but I just yawned a lot. And by the time hang on. I rose, shaking my head. This was crazy. I had to let it go. Yet, even as I left the office, I couldn't help staring and trying to pinpoint what had changed. Then a low voice murmured in my ear, Clea. I never actually looked up how to pronounce these names. I think I should have. I screamed and shot an immediate hammer punch to the side. Whoa! Cried Ben. He reeled back to avoid my fist and tripped over the rug, tumbling to the ground and spilling a fresh mug of coffee over his gray shawl-neck sweater. Ah! He gasped. Hot. Very, very hot. Oh, not good. Ben! Oh my God! Wait. I darted into the bathroom and grabbed a hand towel, then raced back to him, knelt down, and soaped the spilled coffee from his chest. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were there. You didn't say anything. I yelled from downstairs. I thought you'd heard me. How much? I think a coffee spill would be like, a lot more than what you could deal with a hand towel. There's something in between a hand towel and a bath towel. I don't know. They're rich. They probably have it. A strange smell tickled my nose, and I bent closer to Ben, just inches from his face. What's that smell? I asked. Cardamom clove coffee, he said, gesturing to the now Cardamom clove coffee, he said, gesturing to the now empty mug on the floor beside us. I thought you might like it. I like the smell. Maybe you should wear it as a cologne. Good work, he agreed. You give a testimonial that it makes women crazy. Good work, he agreed. You could give a testimonial that it makes women crazy. Nice. Not crazy, nimble. 10 years of Krav Maga gives you cat-like reflexes. If you'd been an intruder, Exposition. The idea brought back all my questions, and I quickly got up and led Ben to my dad's office. Do you see anything different in here? Ben looked and shook his head. It looks the same to me. Did you change anything? Ben looked and then shook his head. It looks the same to me. Did you change anything? No, I wouldn't, I retorted. Someone did, though. I think. It feels different in here. Tampered with. Ben nodded, hands in his pockets, his thoughtful mode. Okay, he said. What is it that feels different? Has anything moved? Is something missing? I can't tell, I admitted. It's not like I see anything specific. It's just a feeling. I get that, Ben said. I trust your feelings. Just maybe some of it comes... I get that, Ben said. I trust your feelings. Just maybe some of it comes from being away for so long. 3 weeks. This is your longest trip since. His voice trailed off, but I knew what he meant. It was my longest trip since the funeral. And it was true. It was also true that I'd been up since 6 in the morning Paris time, and now it was 6 in the evening in Connecticut, midnight in Paris time. And, of course, there was my propensity for extreme thinking. You're right, I said, and I'm exhausted. Maybe I should take a nap. Even Though even as I said it, I thought about the pictures waiting on my computer screen and knew they'd be far more likely than sleep to get my attention. Actual likelihood of that? Like Raina, Ben knew how to read my mind. I smiled at him. I missed you, I said. Missed you too. Welcome home. We moved in to hug each other, then I sprang back seconds before getting smushed against the still sopping wet smetter. Ben! Oh, poor form from my part. And the audience laughed like an episode of Full House, he said, and oh, poor form on my part, he said, and peeled off his sodden sweater. He wore a thin white t-shirt underneath. The coffee spill had left his shirt a bit damp, and it clung tightly to his chest in a way that made me stare and caught my voice in my throat. Clea, don't be a perv. You don't see me acting like that when my female friends spill coffee on their shirts. That was ridiculous, of course. Ben and I had that kind of friendship where we talked about things like that. I could tease him about his suddenly well-toned body. He'd make some kind of self-efficating joke and parry by bringing up something absurd he'd seen about me in a magazine. But I didn't say a word. And I didn't stop looking. Clearly, I was in a sleep-deprived haze. You could still try the coffee, he offered. There's plenty in this sweater. I can just wring it right into the mug. I shook off my reverie. Tempting offer, but no thanks. You really need to give up on the coffee thing. I'm never converting from tea. Ugh, tea drinker. Fucking rich people. We'll see, he said. He sat the wet sweater on the hand towel and then turned to me with his arms out. Better? Much, I said, and closed the distance between us so he could fold me into his arms. Hello? Please tell me I'm interrupting something. It was Raina, and at the sound of her voice, Ben and I sheepishly pulled apart. Again, ridiculous. Hugging was nothing unusual for us. Granted, Ben was usually wearing more than a thin t-shirt at the time. Why is it I'm hearing no one when they come into the house? I asked. Big house, Raina said. Come on, my mom is throwing us a welcome party at our place. Tonight? I asked. Immediately. Unless I can tell my mom there are extenuating circumstances. She said that last part with a leer that lingered on Ben's chest and made him blush. Raina's entire family had spent the last 2 years dying for Ben and me to get together. They seemed to be under the impression that my parents hired him to be my boyfriend, not my international advisor. International, isn't it? It's hard to believe that I've known Ben for only 2 years, and even more bizarre that, at first, I wanted nothing to do with him. Mom and Dad hired Ben without my knowledge soon after I started getting photojournalism assignments around the world, including some less than savory locations. I was furious, imagining a brainless meathead of a bodyguard who'd hang like an albatross around my neck. I should have given my parents more credit. Their main worry wasn't that I'd be physically harmed. We'd had a lot of long talks, and they trusted me to avoid any obvious danger. They also reserved the right to veto any assignments they didn't think were appropriate until I turned 18. So my parents didn't hire Ben for his brawn. They hired him for his brain. At 20, he already has a doctorate, speaks more languages than should be humanly possible, and knows something about pretty much everything, though his specialties are world history and mythology. His knowledge keeps me safer when I travel than any ham-fisted tough guy. This Ben has a pretty impressive resume, though I feel a child prodigy like him would be working for, more than a senator. I mean, Ronan Farrow was an advisor to Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. He's a child prodigy. I think he's from Connecticut too, actually. I thought he was British. Actually, what's up with Ronan Farrow lately? I haven't seen him since this show got canceled. I never watched it. I just knew about it. Although his mom is a senator on the Foreign Relations Committee. Prestigious position? Is she the ranking member? How long ago did her dad die? That she was elected to Senate. Okay, her dad died. Mom got elected to Senate. She got a apparently good spot on the Foreign Relations Committee despite having no other experience than state government. Was she popular? You usually don't get Foreign relation is a prestigious committee. Usually that doesn't go to first terms, especially in the People's First Congress. Yeah, you're watching my show. What do you expect? I'm gonna speculate on this. But to Raina and Wanda, and probably George too, since he always follows the woman in his life, Ben is my soulmate. No extenuating circumstances, Ben said. Sweater malfunction. Let's go to the party. 15 minutes later, we were all at Miranda's house, where Wanda had created an all-American feast. Her dining room table groaned under red, white, and blue plates of hot dogs and pigs in blankets, hamburgers, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, biscuits, and of course apple pie a la mode for dessert. It was an insane amount of food for just the five of us, and we ate until we nearly burst. Then afterward, Ben reigned supreme in a marathon game of charades. I didn't get back home until midnight, 6 a.m. Paris time. I had been up for 24 hours. My eyes burned with fatigue, and every muscle in my body screamed for rest. I nearly made it. I washed up and was about to stagger into my bed when I let my eyes drift to my computer. My screensaver flashed a slideshow of my favorite pictures, but all I could think about was the tortured man from the fire and the other 19 images I had chosen so many hours earlier. I sat at my desk and pressed a button to clear the screensaver. I stared a moment at the man in the fire truck again. So fascinating in his torment. I wanted to print out this image and add it to my portfolio, but I'd have to enlarge the picture so much just to see him. I'd never be able to get more than a granulated print. The CSI effect? No. High resolution camera. Apparently. I keep wanting to make fun of this book, but it doesn't give me a lot to work with. So far, we're just starting. I reduced the pictures to the bottom of my screen and scanned the other 19 images, waiting to see which would demand my attention first. I clicked on a picture of Raina in front of the Parthenon in Athens. She was in a flowing white dress, her arms raised in a goddess-like pose as her long red curls blew behind her. The setting sun lit her whole body aglow, and the effect was absolutely magnificent, except for a small knot of tourists I couldn't frame out of the shot. Time to start cropping. I reframed the image, but as I did, I noticed something strange in the crowd of tourists. A familiar cheekbone and a hard-set jaw. No, it was impossible. Instead of cropping out the tourists, I enlarged them to twice, 3 times their size. There were 6 members of a single group, all in matching powder blue t-shirt that read, "It's great to me, tours." Every single one of them stared at the monument, pointing or taking pictures. Then there was this 7th person, who stared directly at the camera. He was obscured by 3 of the powder blue t-shirt crew, so I could only see half his face. A sweep of hair, 1 carved cheekbone, 1 piercing brown eye, but there was no doubt it was him. My heart started thumping as I moved the Parthenon photo to one side of the screen and pulled up the Paris photo next to it, both enlarged to focus on one man, and it was the same man. The man whom I now realized had been with Raina and me not only in Paris at the end of our trip, but also in Greece 3 weeks before. Panic welled up in me. How had I not noticed him? Ever since the summer camp photo incident, I'd prided myself on being constantly alert, aware, vigilant just about this. Ever since the summer camp photo incident, I'd prided myself on being constantly alert, aware, and vigilant about just this kind of thing, and yet I'd have no idea this man was stalking us through Europe. And he was stalking us. Why else would he be at both ends of our trip? It couldn't be coincidence. This wasn't possible, was it? I stared again at both images. The lone civilian among the firemen, the outsider amid the tour group. This man was completely out of place in both pictures, alone. Either could easily be explained away, but together they pointed to something more sinister. My eyes ran over the other thumbnails as I pulled aside, and I felt a chill race over my body. If the stalker had been with us at both the beginning and the end of his trip, was it possible he was with us the whole time? The very idea made my skin crawl, but didn't it make sense? I don't know, does it make sense? And what if these pictures had reached out to me, not because of their artistry, but because I'd sensed the danger and I'd somehow missed in real life? Any exhaustion I felt was now gone. Well, go to sleep soon, because eventually you're going to see weird colors. My skin prickled with fear as I reduced both images on the screen and pulled up another thumbnail. This one was of the Sacre Cosio Basquiat in Montmartre. I enlarged and scanned for that face. I didn't see it, but I hadn't seen it right away in the other pictures either. I enlarged and kept scanning, my knuckles white as I gripped the mouse. There, a shadow on one of the highest parapets. I zoomed in closer, and my forehead broke out in sweat. He was there. His back was turned. I saw the hair, the leather jacket, jeans, the muscular build. It was him. And he stood in a spot I knew was absolutely off limits to tourists. So how did he get there? And why? My first thought was actually comforting. He could be a government bodyguard Raina and I weren't supposed to have noticed. That had happened before. Mom had made people upset enough that they threatened our family. And there have been times when she'd put a tail on me, but kept it a secret so I wouldn't get scared. If that's what this man was, it would certainly explain his access to the parapet. It was still weird that I hadn't seen him, since I always pegged the secret bodyguards before. But maybe he was just better at his job than the others. I don't know what a parapet is. I feel like I should. Or maybe he'd just been more careful than the others because he wasn't there to guard me. Maybe instead of protecting me from a threat, he was a threat. I quickly enlarged the other thumbnails, one at a time. I ran my eyes over the backgrounds, the corners, the most seemingly inconsequential parts of each photo, enlarging and enlarging until every time I saw him. He was always there. Though the pictures were all from different parts of our trip, different parts of Europe, he was there, always obscured, in the background, so small you would never notice him unless you were specifically looking for him, but always there. I kind of love how over the top the idea of him, like, in every photo, like, occasionally staring right into the camera as he does it. It reminds me of Haruhi Suzumiya for some reason. I was shaking now, positive this man had wanted to harm me and possibly Reina. Kidnap us? Kill us? During our trip, and it was only by chance that he hadn't found the perfect opportunity to do it. I was about to make an emergency call to my mother when I opened the final thumbnail, a gargoyle high on the wall of Prague's St. Vitus's Cathedral. I had just taken the shot with a zoom lens, just as a gargoyle leaping off the balcony with only a window in the cathedral's facade behind it. I zoomed in on the window, assuming I'd find the man peering out of it. He wasn't there, which meant he couldn't possibly be in the shot, since there was nowhere else for a person to hide. Spoiler alert, he's the gargoyle. I'm calling it right now, he's the gargoyle. Still, I couldn't help but search the enlarged photo, studying it edge to edge. I finally found a shadow high in the corner of the frame, and fresh goosebumps danced up my arms. I didn't want to enlarge it. I didn't want to look any closer, but I had to. I zoomed in on the image one more time and focused on the shadow. It was him. I just lost a bet. He stood with his hands in the pockets of his leather jacket. He lounged back on the wall of the cathedral, gazing thoughtfully off into the distance without a bit of tension in his body, like he was waiting for a bus. Except he was over 100 feet in the air, and he stood on nothing. Nothing. Is he Satan? He's Satan, isn't he? The mouse rattled in my shaking hand and I let it go, but I couldn't stop staring at the picture. Who was this man? What was he? Ideas bolted through my brain, but every one of them was impossible. But so was standing in midair. In a flash of wild inspiration, I grabbed my camera and snapped 10 pictures, spinning around in my chair to get the bookcase, the closet, the bed, every section of the room. I frantically uploaded them onto the computer and started pouring them over one at a time, enlarging them, and straining my eyes to find any unusual shadow, any half-blurred image. There was nothing. Okay, cool, because I was about to say that, maybe you're just really tired because you've been up 24 hours with not a lot of opportunity to rest, but you're just good to Joss Wheaton that option out of the way before I could make an ass of myself with that suggestion. My heart slowed as I kept scanning. Despite my crazy thoughts, it seemed like the man really was just a flesh and blood stalker. I was actually relieved. Then I opened up the 10th photo and screamed out loud. It was my darkened closet, with the man inside the door. Oh, holy shit. He is the devil. Maybe? I don't know. Either way, that's the way the chapter ends, and I'm not reading this part until I'm on film to prove it, which means I gotta go edit this and then upload it later, which will give me a lot of motivation to do so. Now, I felt this video was a lot shorter. I mean, it was only 2/3 the length of the first chapter, but I didn't have to do the introduction. I tried to make sure I read faster and just, I didn't make comments unless they were stuff that could be provided new information. So, yeah, that deals with chapter 2 of the book thing, the Hillary Duff book thing. I don't have much to say. Stay tuned for chapter 3 coming soon. By the time you're reading this, I'm probably already editing the King of the Hill video. Until next time. That's not the microphone that works. I just do this to look cool.